Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep on something really, really foundational. The laws of thermodynamics.
Oh, yeah.
You guys sent in some really awesome material on this. And
It's pretty fundamental stuff.
yeah, our mission today is to give you a solid understanding of what these laws are and how they're surprisingly relevant to your daily life and how the whole universe actually works.
Yeah, thermodynamics. I mean, it sounds kind of intimidating, but at its heart, it's about energy and heat, and those fundamental rules that govern how they transform. It's really the bedrock of so much in physics and engineering that impacts you every single day.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Yeah, that's it.
The first law.
All right.
You've probably heard it called the law of conservation of energy.
Right.
So what's the big idea here? In simple terms, what is it?
The first law basically tells us that energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred from one place to another or converted from one form to another.
Okay,
Think of it like a universal accounting principle for energy.
I like that.
The total amount of energy in a closed system always remains constant.
So if you had a closed system, like say a perfectly insulated container,
Right.
the total energy inside would always be the same,
Exactly.
even if it changes form,
It's just moving around.
just moving around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like picture boiling water in a pot, perfectly insulated pot.
Mm.
The electrical energy that's powering the heating element
Right.
gets converted into thermal energy, which increases the water temperature. And then that thermal energy can then cause some of that water to turn into steam, which increases the kinetic energy of those water molecules.
Right.
But the total amount of energy within that closed system, that is the pot and its contents, remains constant throughout that entire process.
So essentially, every technology that we use to power our lives is just a clever way of moving and transforming energy that's already here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense for a closed system. But what about when things aren't so neatly contained? Like, if you're boiling water on the stove and the steam escapes,
Right.
does the first law still apply?
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
You would think that some of the energy is just, I don't know, lost.
So what's fascinating here is that even in systems that aren't closed, that are open systems, the first law still holds.
Okay.
The energy isn't lost, it's just transferred out into the environment.
Okay.
The heat that escapes as steam still carries energy with it, and that increases the kinetic energy of the air molecules around the pot.
Oh.
So the total energy of the larger system, the pot, the water, and the surrounding air remains the same. It's conserved. It just gets distributed differently.
So it's not about loss, it's about transfer.
Exactly.
I like how some of the sources put it. The first law is like keeping track of energy,
Right.
like balancing a checkbook for energy.
It is. Yeah, you got to make sure the numbers add up.
Yeah.
Just on a cosmic scale.
Yeah. So energy can't be created or destroyed.
Right.
Just moved around or changed.
Transfer to transform.
Okay, I got it. So let's move on to the second law.
Okay.
This one's a little bit more, I don't know, philosophical.
Little bit. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's getting deeper now.
It brings in this idea of entropy. What is entropy and why should we care?
So entropy in thermodynamic terms is a measure of disorder or randomness.
Okay.
So imagine you have a deck of cards and it's perfectly ordered by suit and number.
Okay.
That's low entropy.
Okay.
Now shuffle the deck.
Okay.
High entropy.
Gotcha.
There are way more ways for those cards to be disordered than perfectly ordered.
Right.
The second law states that in any energy transfer or transformation, the total entropy always increases over time.
Okay.
It's always increasing. And it's this relentless increase of entropy that's the reason why, well, nothing lasts forever and why you can never achieve 100% efficiency.
Okay. Disorder, randomness. That makes a little bit more sense with the cards.
Yeah.
Can you give us a more concrete example? Something that might hit a little closer to home?
Yeah, absolutely. Think about a sugar cube dissolving in your tea.
Okay.
Initially, you have a very highly ordered state. All those sugar molecules are packed together in that cube.
Right.
You drop it in the tea, and they spontaneously spread out and mix with the tea molecules.
Right.
That's a transition to a more disordered state.
Yeah.
Because the sugar molecules are now randomly distributed.
Okay.
The entropy of that system, the tea and the sugar, has increased.
So things naturally tend to go from being organized to being more spread out, more chaotic.
Yeah,
Kind of like the desk at the end of the week.
exactly.
So the second law is basically saying that the universe has this natural tendency towards messiness.
It does.
You see evidence of that everywhere,
That's a great way to think about it, yeah.
right?
And it has some really huge implications.
Okay.
It explains why heat flows from hot objects to colder ones. The energy just becomes more dispersed. It explains why it's easy to break an egg,
Uh-huh.
which increases disorder, but it's really hard to put it back together.
Right. Yeah. Now, this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The second law is sometimes called the arrow of time.
Right.
Why is that?
So what's fascinating is that the second law gives time a direction.
Okay.
Processes that increase entropy happen naturally. They're spontaneous.
Right.
The reverse processes, the ones that would decrease entropy, they don't.
Okay.
Think about the sugar dissolving. It will never, ever come back together and form a perfect cube again on its own.
Right.
And this unidirectional increase in entropy, that's what separates the past from the future. Time moves in the direction of increasing disorder.
So the second law isn't just about heat and messiness.
No,
It's fundamentally linked to why time seems to only move forward.
exactly.
Wow, time only moving forward because of increasing disorder. That really changes how you think about even simple things happening around you.
It really does.
That's mind-blowing.
It's one of the most profound laws in physics, impacting everything we observe.
Okay, so we've wrestled with entropy and the arrow of time. Let's move on to the third law, which involves the concept of absolute zero.
Yeah.
Brr, it's getting cold in here. What does the third law tell us?
It states that as the temperature of a system approaches absolute zero,
Okay.
which is minus 273.15 degrees Celsius, or 0 Kelvin,
Okay.
the entropy of that system approaches a minimum value.
So at absolute zero, things reach their most ordered state possible.
Precisely.
Kind of like that perfectly stacked deck of cards we were talking about.
Exactly. At absolute zero, theoretically, a perfect crystal would have all of its atoms perfectly aligned
Mhm.
with no thermal vibrations or randomness.
Okay.
So it's the state of maximum order and therefore minimum entropy.
But our sources point out that actually reaching absolute zero is impossible.
Yeah.
Why is that?
This is really important. Scientists have gotten incredibly close to absolute zero, but to get all the way there would require removing all thermal energy from a system.
Mm.
And as you get closer and closer to absolute zero, it becomes harder and harder to remove that last little bit of energy. It's a fundamental limit imposed by the laws of thermodynamics.
So it's kind of like trying to reach the end of a rainbow,
Yeah, it's a good analogy. You can keep getting closer and closer,
but you never actually get there.
but you never quite get there.
Okay, so it's like chasing the horizon.
Exactly.
You can get closer and closer, but you'll never quite reach it.
It highlights the asymptotic nature of it. We can get arbitrarily close,
Right.
but that last step remains elusive.
All right, so we've taken a journey through these three fundamental laws.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back down to earth a little bit.
Okay.
Where do you see these laws in action every day, like in the technology that surrounds us?
The applications are everywhere.
Yeah.
The first law, conservation of energy, underpins the operation of every energy system that we rely on.
Okay.
Car engines. They convert the chemical energy in fuel into mechanical energy to move the car. Power plants convert different forms of energy, like chemical energy and fossil fuels or nuclear energy, into electrical energy, which powers our homes. Even our bodies are constantly converting chemical energy from food into the energy we need to function.
Right. And the second law, with its increasing entropy, explains why we can't have machines that run forever without any energy input, right?
Like perpetual
A
motion.
perpetual motion machine would actually violate the second law.
It would.
Yeah, because it would require a process where entropy doesn't increase or maybe even decreases, but there's no external energy input.
Okay.
The natural tendency towards disorder means that some energy will always be lost as heat or some other form of unusable energy,
Okay.
and that prevents perpetual motion.
So the second law is like a fundamental limit on efficiency.
It is.
What about the third law?
Right.
You mentioned cryogenics
Yeah.
and quantum computing.
Yeah. How does something that seems so theoretical have practical uses?
Well, in cryogenics, understanding how materials behave at super low temperatures, where entropy approaches its minimum,
Right.
is really important for things like superconductivity,
Okay.
which is where materials conduct electricity with zero resistance and preserving biological materials.
Okay.
And then in quantum computing, keeping those systems at those low temperatures helps minimize thermal noise,
Uh-huh.
which is the random jiggling of atoms because of heat.
Okay.
And that can disrupt the delicate quantum states that you need for computation.
Okay.
The closer you get to absolute zero, the more stable those quantum systems become.
Gotcha.
And this could lead to breakthroughs in medicine and AI.
It's amazing how these fundamental laws, some of which sound pretty abstract,
Yeah, they do.
have such tangible effects on the technology we use and just how we understand the world.
They provide us with a framework for understanding everything, from the smallest particles to the largest structures in the universe.
Okay, so to wrap things up, why is it valuable for someone who isn't a scientist or an engineer to have even just a basic understanding of these laws?
Because it gives you a really fundamental understanding of how the universe works.
Okay.
It helps you understand why certain processes are possible and others aren't. It informs your understanding of important issues like energy efficiency and climate change, which are governed by these very laws.
Right.
Even on a personal level, appreciating this tendency towards entropy can give you a new perspective on things, like why your house gets messier over time despite your best efforts.
Yeah.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's like these laws are the underlying rules of the game.
Yeah, they are.
Whether you're talking about the car engine or
Yeah.
the life cycle of a star,
Yeah.
and understanding them gives you a much deeper appreciation for the elegance and the interconnectedness of everything.
Couldn't agree more.
So that's been a really insightful deep dive into the laws of thermodynamics.
It has been.
Amazing how these fundamental principles govern so much of what we see and experience.
Yeah.
Thank you for shedding so much light on this.
My pleasure. It's always fun to talk about this stuff.
And thank you for joining us on this exploration. Hopefully this is giving you a solid foundation in thermodynamics and maybe sparked a new way of looking at the world around you. Now, as you go about your day, think about how these fundamental laws might be shaping the events you encounter, maybe in ways you hadn't considered before. What unexpected corners of your life might be governed by these principles of energy and disorder and that unattainable chill of absolute zero? It's something to think about. Until next time, keep exploring.
Definitely.
We'll see you on the deep dive.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.